I want to jump right into it with, first of all, to start off the discussion with where you rate South African MBAs. And here I will be talking about leading institutions in the country compared to leading institutions outside of the country.
Evening, Hannah. We're fortunate in South Africa. We've got some very, very good business schools. They're highly rated, that's internationally rated. So we're producing good MBAs. We're producing good MBAs for the country, and we're producing good MBAs for the rest of the world. And I think we can hold our heads high on that, as we can with business leaders that we produce for around the world.
One of the things that you were saying to me is that when you're talking about how the globe is changing, you say that you're not just talking about the financial crises that we saw, or the financial crisis that we're seeing right now in the Eurozone, for instance, and how business is having to respond to that. But you were saying there's so many things that go beyond just the crises and the way that leaders are supposed to be tackling these issues. And what do you think is key?
I think we have a global crisis. But we had one before, and we're going to have another one, and we're going to get through this one somehow. What is changing fundamentally is the pace at which business decisions need to be made, and that's getting ever faster, and two, the complexity within which those decisions need to be made. So if you want to be a leader today, you need to be able to cut through the complexity, you need to be able to make decisions quickly, and you need to be confident that those decisions are going to have long-term future.
Simon, you were talking about what's happening on the African continent right now, with so much interest in terms of investment, in terms of some of the leading companies, not only here in South Africa, but in the rest of the world, wanting to come into Africa because of the returns, because of the opportunity there. And you were saying that South African leaders really need to step up the game to be able to compete with all the people that are coming from even outside the continent who want to set up shop here.
Yes, Africa is going to become like any other exciting market, and Africa is an exciting market. It's growing, it's more stable than it used to be, there's more democracy in Africa, there's less corruption in Africa, and with all its wealth of mineral resource, natural resource, environmental resource, farming resource, the world is wanting to get into Africa and is getting into Africa. Now, a lot of South Africans feel that Africa is our natural stamping ground from a business point of view. And so it should be. But don't think when we get there that we don't have to compete with businesses, with governments, with organizations coming in from around the world. Africa is going to be as competitive as anywhere else. And if we want to take what I feel is a very good place for South Africa in terms of helping Africa, leading business in Africa, we've got to be as good as the businesses and organizations from around the world.
Simon, one of the things that is talked about in terms of business and is business coaching and business mentoring, for instance, that if you do want to, whether it's growing your business or furthering your career, that it's good to have a mentor. So what would you say to somebody who is thinking about, should I get a mentor or should I go the MBA route? What for you is valuable about having an MBA?
I think what an MBA does is gives younger business people, but not necessarily young business people. We have people of many ages coming to Stellenbosch. It gives younger people a chance to rethink themselves, to re-understand their business leadership capabilities, and to take whatever their next step forward is. So it's a real chance to rethink your career, who you are, what your strengths are. I don't think that replaces at all good mentorship, and most business leaders that I've met have had at least one or two very powerful mentors in their lives. And I think it's the mix of both that can create great leadership for the future.
For you, Simon, though, I mean, I have spoken to people who are very serious about their studies and wanting to, as we said, further their careers or further their business. And they would have, and I know people who've done their MBA and then feel that that's not sufficient and they'd like to do something else at an international, say like the London Business School, the London School of Business, or some of the institutions in the US. What does that say to you about how South Africans themselves might be viewing the level and the standard of South African MBAs?
I don't think that necessarily passes comment on South Africa. I think any good business person today needs an international focus. And what you'll find, Stellenbosch not the least, is that we have relationships with institutions overseas. We have courses that swap between the two, That's excellent for us, excellent for the pupils, but there are going to be many people who want further exposure and want to go on to other universities or further education. But it would be wrong for us as South African business schools to say everything is about South Africa. And that's why we've put in these exchange programs and relationships with international universities. Business today is international. We need to be training people to operate internationally.
Simon, in your new role as the chairman of the University of Stellenbosch, about the advisory board right now, what is going to be important for you to bring to this board?
I think what's critical is what does the faculty, what does Professor Powell, and perhaps more importantly, what does Professor Russell Botman, who's the rector of Stellenbosch University, want from the advisory board? And what they've both said to us is talk to us about what business needs and what you think business is going to need into the future. So we're fortunate, we've got a great business school with a good track record, and the two leaders, the rector of the university and the director of the school itself, are saying to the advisory board, give us your input, tell us what you think is needed for future business leaders. That's our role. We can only advise, we can give advice, and we can sort of give the odd nod from time to time. But that's what we've been asked for.
When you talk about what business need, what does business need right now? You did talk about the ability to be able to deal with crises when they come up. But other than that, what do you think the world of business needs right now, especially looking at the complexity and the dynamism at which business is taking place right now?
Now, there's a wonderful concept that a mentor of mine many years ago gave me. He said, great business leaders find simplicity on the other side of complexity. So what he meant by that is that the world is a complex place. And too many of us too often give a simplistic answer. We don't understand the complexity. We just give a surface answer. What business schools can do is teach people to understand that complexity, to understand all the inputs that are coming from around whatever their stakeholders are, whatever the issues are, and come through that, cut through that, and give a simple strategic answer or a simple relevant answer as to where to go. So if business schools can help teach people to find that simplicity on the other side of complexity, then we're creating great business leaders for the future.
Thank you so much for joining us, Simon.